Syngenta Crop Protection Canada and C&M Seeds present the Wheat School on realagriculture.com.
So, Rob, recently you wrote a piece on wheat, and you entitled it Wheat, the Next Frontier. What do you mean by that, and why do you think that wheat is the next frontier?
Hi, Sean. So wheat, it really excites me when I think about the progress, that we've made in the past few years maybe. But when I look out 5 or 10 years from now, wheat for me really is that next frontier. Comparing it to other crops in Canada, we've got corn, soybeans, and canola that are top of mind to me. They've all experienced a lot of research and development, and they've really changed in the last 10 or 15 years. Like think about soybeans 15 years ago. Think about canola 10 years ago. And where in Vigor and Roundup Ready and these new traits are a part of, we take it for granted today. Those were new and different things and different ways of contracting production. And it changed the processing, it changed the seed business. And I think wheat is that next frontier where I think we'll see a lot of changes all throughout the value chain, from research to seed to grain handling to processing and milling.
But why is that? Why all of a sudden are we so interested in wheat? What's changed?
Okay, so I think wheat has lost its competitive edge compared to other crops when a farmer makes a decision of what to plant. So acres of wheat in Canada have dropped over the last number of years, and they've dropped in the U.S. as well. But demand is picking up. The U.S. Wheat Associates, is the U.S. export arm, I guess, or export marketing arm. And they issued a newsletter that I get each month. And last month they said global trade of wheat should double to 250 million metric tons by 2050. Now, lots of people are making population growth forecasts. The population is growing by 2050. So the demand for food is going to increase exponentially, or quite a lot. Anyway, that's what the U.S. Wheat Associates have pegged the mark at. So we've got growing demand. We've also got picky customers. We've got new needs, gluten-free diets, people wanting different types of bread, different types of pastries. So all kinds of new customer segments that we can tap into. Growing overall demand, yet acres are shrinking.
So, Rob, how is wheat different than the other crops in your mind?
Okay, there's lots of differences with wheat. First off, let's talk about investment in seed research. When you compare private company research in corn, soybeans, canola with cereal crops, there's a huge difference. We all know that. So what does that lead to? Well, we've got a private, companies that need to start investing in it. We've got a public breeding program that's there. Working together, the private-public partnerships, as we've talked about, is important. There's a lot of other differences too. When you look at seeding rate, so a unit or a bushel of canola plants about 10 acres roughly. A unit of corn plants about 3 acres roughly, maybe a little bit more. Wheat, a bushel of wheat plants about half an acre. So if we're going to plant 1 million acres of some new variety, that's 2 million bushels of seed we need to get out into the system. That's much different than with canola. So this can't be handled the same way the other crops are when we get into large scale volumes. Yet the current seed system really isn't set up to deliver new technology and these new varieties.
I was going to say, so where does Canada fit? Is Canada ready for this next frontier, or is the U.S. and Australia, they're obviously our big competition here. So where do we stack up?
Okay, so you mentioned Australia and the U.S. is big competition, and I agree. But let's look at the overall acres. Like we're number 8, I think, in terms of total acres planted. China plants a lot of wheat. India plants a lot of wheat. The EU, Europe plants a lot of wheat. They're in the top 3. We're number 8 as far as total acreage overall. So as far as exports, we're definitely in the top group. So we're one of the big exporting nations. And a big part of our ag economy is still driven on wheat. So where do we stack up? I think we need to be careful. I think there's lots of progress being made or could be made on research. I think we've seen some companies come in and invest in research in the past couple of years in Western Canada. There's one, fairly successful outfit in Ontario here, C&M Seeds, doing good work in research. But we need more of that if we're going to stay competitive with the U.S., for example. Midge tolerant wheat launched in the spring varieties, this past 2 years. I think that's a great example of how you can take a new technology, bring it to market in a bit of a different way that's still farmer friendly, but still gives the researcher some kind of recognition and revenue back through the
So
chain.
I guess when we look at wheat, we think of it as obviously it's a commodity. If you look at, you mentioned canola and soybeans, we do have things like IP programs, we have segregation. Is the wheat handling system ready for those kinds of opportunities?
Is Good question. So is wheat ready for IP opportunities? I think, like on the Wheat Board website, and I'm not familiar firsthand myself, but they talk about different IP programs or different ways of handling it. So I think it's an evolution. I think grain companies will tell you that if there's a market where someone will pay something, pay extra, then they'll figure out a way to do it. But at the same hand, if somebody's not out developing those markets, then customers aren't going to ask for something new either. So I think we need to actually work together on it. If you look at IP soybeans, that's a good example of where you've got, the breeders and the companies, offering, food buyers. And in soybeans, it's in Asia, right? Our wheat customers aren't just in Asia. There's lots of other markets we should look at. But having the researcher and the miller go look at what does the customer need? Can we build this differently for you? How much will you buy? And try to set that up. It takes a lot of work. And you know what? The first few times you do it, you have some false starts. It's hard to get those markets going. But in the end, that's what we need to do if we're going to be competitive and stay in this game.
Right. So obviously, when we talk about the the changes to wheat, we talk about yield. Yields, obviously, we're always looking to make the crop of wheat more competitive. You had mentioned midge tolerance, right? So there's an example of innovation. Where do you see some of the other innovations in the wheat crop?
Oh, there's all kinds that we could look at. So there's the input side, the output side. So input, like disease resistance, think of fusarium, think of anything. There's lots of potential on that side, and that's likely where it will come first. But on the output side, that's maybe what really should come first. We've got some consumers who are unsure about biotechnology in some countries. Wheat's a very, traditional basic crop, and people see the connection between wheat to flour to bread much more than they do the connection between corn and, the ingredients that corn goes into. So it's a very emotional crop, and with so many countries strong in producing it, right? We're number 8 out of, in terms of total acreage globally. There's lots of other people in this wheat game. It's not isolated to one or two countries, and our customers aren't in one or two countries. So there's lots of countries involved, makes it really complex, lots of emotions. Output traits may be the best thing and the thing we should work on first. You know, Getting rid of allergens, improving flour quality. There's all kinds of options there.
Okay, Rob, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, take care, Sean.